Hey everybody, this is Steven from PopCultureMaven.com. We're back with this week's new comic book reviews. So it's a pretty decent week. There's still definitely supply issues. There's still stuff that's running late and everything, but actually a fair amount came out this week, and there's surprisingly a lot of number ones. Or in this case, the first one up is going to be a special. So let's get right to it. First up, we have Batman: The Long Halloween Special, written by Jeff Loeb with artwork by Tim Sale. So I, along with probably everybody else in the universe, was surprised when DC announced this title because it's been so long since they've done a book at DC. Their last book was the Captain America, I believe it was Red and White, and it was partially started but never completed, and then it finally got completed, but that's been years ago. So they haven't really done anything. So it was totally out of the blue that they announced this. And it's also a continuation of one of their most popular books that they ever worked on together. So the kind of question comes down to, was it worth the wait? And I think in a lot of ways it is. And I think what I liked about it was that it's just a good, solid story. It wasn't one that will necessarily blow you away, but that's not what they're trying to do. They're just telling a good story, and that's, I think, why it works very well. So the other question is going to be, if you've never, if there might be some people out there that have never read the Long Halloween. The good news is you don't have to. This story is very self-contained. You don't have to know any of that previous stories or anything like that. You can come in fresh and you'll be perfectly fine. It's a good way if you like this, then definitely go check out the other things. Not only the Batman books that they did Challengers of the Unknown at DC. They did a Hulk book. They did a Spider-Man book. There's lots of books that these two have done, and they're all really good stuff. So, it's just one of those books that it's just a nice, pleasant surprise. And of course, it being that its theme is hugely about Halloween, coming out right before Halloween's absolutely perfect. So that was good. But like I said, Loeb, definitely the story's really good. Then you have Tim Sale's artwork, and he hasn't done a whole lot lately. So it's really, really great to see him again. And he has not missed a beat. His Batman's a really good Batman. And one of my favorite, there are two phases in this, and Solomon Grundy. So he really draws great versions of them. And it's a really good story. It's about Calendar Man coming back and pulling off this heist for Halloween, and it's just a really good story. So I think it's not only is it a good definitely to pick up, but I mean it's just right in time for Halloween, so it just fires on all cylinders on that respect. So I think it's definitely worth picking up. I really enjoyed it for just being a good solid book. Next up we have Nina Hark's Nightmare Blog #1. Written by Rodney Barnes with layout and art by Jason Shawn, and then artwork by Jason Shawn Alexander, and then the artwork by Patrick Reynolds. So now this book spins out of the Image Comics Philadelphia. So I read the first story arc and actually really enjoyed that book. It was really quite interesting, and it was definitely very vampire oriented story. This one definitely is not necessarily per se a vampire. It's more of a kind of a monster story, and it's just a different story within that universe. The one thing is, I don't think you need to have read Philadelphia. I mean, it certainly is nice, and you could, if you have read that, you'll know that this is a nice companion book. But this book does definitely stand on its own. So if you haven't read Philadelphia and you're interested, this is a good way to kind of get in, just kind of check out what they're doing. Because Barnes is one of the writers on Philadelphia. Now, Jason Shawn Alexander is one of the regular artists, but Patrick Reynolds does most of the, really lifting here. I think it's really just the layouts that Alexander does here. And the story is actually really good. It's nice and creepy. Nina Hawks is it's just an interesting story. She's trying to figure out this mystery, and of course, involves monsters and everything. So, that kind of comes with the territory. You can pretty much, it's fun for what it is. It's a nice little monster story, and I liked it on that level. I did like the artwork that Alexander and then Reynolds did the full artwork. It's actually a really nice looking book. It has a lot of good, moody feel to the artwork, which is always a plus for when you're doing a book like this. So I think I enjoyed it, and I think it's worth checking out this week. Next up, we have Aquaman Green Arrow Deep Target #1, written by Brandon Thomas, with artwork by Ronan Cliquette. That's how I'm going to say it. So I apologize if I mispronounced it. So this is the only way I can describe this book. It's like Freaky Friday, where Green Arrow is Aquaman and Aquaman is Green Arrow. I don't know why. The book doesn't explain anything. It's honestly, this book was a huge, it was not, sadly, very good. You get first of all, you get dropped into this story of, for some reason, they've switched places. There's no explanation of why this has happened. And there's just, I honestly don't know what Thomas was thinking with the script, because it really just kind of doesn't make any sense. It's just like, okay, they've switched places. Okay, but what's the point? There is, at least in this first issue, there really is no point. The story really doesn't go anywhere. I honestly don't know what this whole thing means. It's just really, it's a sad mess. And it's a shame, because I know that writing something is not easy, but I just don't know what he was thinking on this, because it just makes no sense, and it's a real mess. The only thing I can say is Ronan's artwork, Cliquette. It's actually nice artwork. He does his best to make it look halfway decent, considering, I don't know how he followed the story, because I certainly didn't. But yeah, this one's a big pass this week. It was just not very good. It's just really kind of sad. So sadly, we're going to have to move on from that. Next up, we have House of Slaughter #1, with a story by James Tynan IV and Tate Bromble, with a script by Tate Bromble, and the artwork is by Chris Sheehan. So this is kind of the first miniseries that has spun out of Something is Killing the Children. So what this story is about the hunters that hunt the monsters that are killing children. So they basically kind of go to this academy. Think of like, Mutant Academy with the X-Men. They go to learn how to fight, the monsters and stuff like that. So that's what the basic premise of this story is. And it centers on one cadet who, so there's kind of two fractions. There's the white mask and then the black mask. So he's a black mask. Apparently there's more white mask. But so obviously there is a tension between the two fractions. And he's trying to learn. They want him to learn, because I think there's not as many black masks. And it's been a while since I've read Something Has Killed the Children. So apologies if it sounds a little like I don't know what I'm talking about. But I'm just going by the story here. So there's a new recruit that comes in, and he's a white mask, but they need him to stay in the room with the main character. And so what it is you kind of find out that the new white mask character is going to become the villain, and it's actually, they're going to have a relationship. So it's very interesting. There's kind of a lot going on here. I think, obviously one of the questions is, if you haven't read Something Is Killing the Children, can you pick this up? And it's kind of yes and no. I think you have to know the basic premise of Something Is Killing the Children, that, there are these, hunters and stuff like that. I think if you know that basic premise, I think you'll be fairly okay. This story does pretty much stand up on its own, because it is a side story. So, in that respect, I think you can pick this up fairly well, but it certainly would help if you've read at least I'd say the first story arc in Something Has Killed the Children, because it will lead you to know a lot of the premise here. So Bromble is really doing the script here, and he's done a really good job. He actually did the Barb Alien Black Hammer story, which I really enjoyed. So he is really perfect for this story. He does a nice job of setting everything up. You get to know the characters, get to know the premise of the story and everything, and it pans out, has a nice, cliffhanger ending, and it just does it well. Chris Sheehan's artwork's actually quite nice. Does a really good job of doing, there's a lot of times where people are just standing around talking. So if you can pull that off, you're a good artist. So in that respect, I enjoyed this. I haven't, like I said, I'm really far behind on some things killing the children, but I do think if you, at least you know the premise, I think you should check it out. It was good, solid first issue. Next up, we have DC versus Vampires, written by James Tynion IV and Matthew Rosenberg, with artwork by Otto Schmidt. Now, this is obviously because Deceased was so big. DC has decided, hey, wait, it's Halloween. We can do this with vampires. So that's, if you've read Deceased, instead of the heroes and villains turning into zombies, they're not turning into vampires. That's pretty much the premise here. So it starts off that somebody, the iVampire character, which we haven't seen in quite a while since the New 52, so it was nice to see him back. He finds out that there's a vampire queen that is holding the vampires from killing all the people on Earth, sucking them dry. So she has been killed. His clues lead him back to the Legion of Doom. All the villains are dead, and some of them are now vampires. So they're either dead or vampires, one of the two. And so he goes to the Justice League to try to figure out, and of course, without spoiling, you can kind of figure out that what's going to happen. So pretty much everybody's turning into vampires, and then Batman's left to figure it out. That's kind of what we've got. It was a decent story. I don't think it was anything that like blew me away or anything like that. It was enjoyable for what it was. I just don't think it was really anything that like, I think it's going to be one of those books. It's like, okay, that's nice. And it's a good read, but that's where it's going to end. I will say Otto Schmidt's artwork's actually really nice here. He does a good job, draws nice vampires. And it's just ultimately, it's a decent book. It's nothing to really jump up and down about, but it was a decent read. Next up, we have Cross to Bear, #1, written by Marko Stujanovic, with artwork by Sinisa Banovic. So the basic premise here is, think of the Order kind of like the Knights of the Round Table. So it's a group that is trying to, they look for bad people. And it's set in the Wild Wild West. So that's the basic premise here. So it starts off in like Victorian, city, and they go in to kill this one person, and they end up two of the three guys from the Order get killed. So he ends up going to like the West to meet up with a colleague that has left the Order, and to ask for help with what's going on. So that's what we have basically here in this first issue. And the story by Stojanovic, it's nice and everything. It just, I think there wasn't quite the hook that I wanted to be. I think there are some good ideas here. It just wasn't, there was nothing in the end that kind of grabbed me, especially when it came to like the ending of this first issue. It was like, okay, that's nice, but I didn't feel a huge reason to come back for a second issue. It's not that this was bad, it was just kind of okay. The artwork was actually pretty nice, does a nice job. Once again, most of the time, people are standing around, talking. So in that respect, the artwork does its job. It's serviceable, does a nice job. But ultimately, the book just kind of is okay. I don't think it is anything that, I like the concept, it just didn't quite go anywhere, and that's sadly where it ended. Next up, we have Task Force Z, written by Matthew Rosenberg, with pencils by Eddie Barrows and inks by Ibar Ferreira. So we already had vampires, so DC's like, hey, we need zombies. So we had DC versus vampires, so we now have Task Force Z, i.e. Z for zombies. So what this is think about the Suicide Squad, but most of them are are zombies, and you have one guy leading the team, and that's the basic premise here. And it's a Suicide Squad story with zombies, and that's really all it is. I mean, Rosenberg does a nice job. It's kind of one of those things. It's a nice read while you're reading it, but there wasn't anything that was like super compelling to like continue reading it. I mean, it's nice. I don't think it was bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it is what it is. And I think if that's something that appeals to you, having like a Suicide Squad zombie story, then great. But for me, it was kind of okay. I will say that I really enjoy Eddie Barrow's artwork. He's really a good penciler, and I really, really enjoy his artwork. The book looks really good. Whenever he does a job, he always does a really nice job. But ultimately, the story is what it is. It's not any more. It's not any less. If that's something that appeals to you, then great. Overall, I thought it was fine, but nothing really spectacular. Next up, we have Hellcop #1, written and drawn by Brian Hamberlin. So the basic premise here is, think of like Men in Black, but they're searching for demons. And I will have to say, one of the really interesting things is, or demons and monsters, is that their choice of drugs is sweet and low. So I thought that was absolutely brilliant. I have to kudos for Hamberlin to come up with that. But basically the story is like these two, cops, Men in Black type characters are hunting these monsters, demons, and sending them back to hell or wherever they came from. So that's really the basic premise here, and it's one of those. It's a nice story and everything, and then it does turn into a murder mystery. So it's actually, I think it's got a lot of good ideas. I wasn't necessarily blown away by this first issue, but I think there was just enough to kind of to come back for a second issue to see where he takes the story because what it is it turns into a murder mystery. Somebody sets him up, and because they kill his partner, he goes to the apartment, finds her dead, and then of course the cops are like, freeze. So that's the basic premise. I wouldn't say that this was a particularly original story, but I think it did a decent job of telling its story. And like I said, I think there's enough intriguing elements in the story to give it a second chance to see where he takes it in the second issue. I will say the artwork's actually really, really nice. It's really nice. It has actually kind of a painted look to it. And it really just is really nice looking book. So I think it's kind of worth giving a shot if you have a little extra money to spend this week and check it out. Like I said, not overwhelming, but it shows promise. Next up, we have Echolands #3, written by J.H. Williams III and W. Hayden Blackman, with artwork by J.H. Williams III. Now, once again, we'll go back to the reason we're all buying this book is because of Williams' artwork, which is absolutely stunning. But I have to say, I think this issue, because the first issue was really a setup, so it's kind of hard to tell where it was going. The second issue definitely built. In this third issue, I think we finally kind of get to the really meat of the story that Williams and Blackman are trying to tell. And it's interesting because there's definitely a lot of, it's more mood than like really deep story, which is fine because once again, what's driving this book is the artwork. And to say that this book is stunning looking it's just gorgeous. And the way doing it, with the fold out, doing it kind of sideways compared to most comics is truly brilliant. It really adds so much to the mood and feel of the story. And while the story, like I said, is moving along, it's actually, that's the one thing. They're not giving a lot away. They're slowly unraveling the story, which is not necessarily bad. So they're kind of they're kind of opening up this world, so we're getting to see different parts. And that's where because this third issue, we go to this island. They get stranded on an island, and they're trying to get away with the jewel that they've stolen. and they get caught, you know, they get trapped there, but things don't turn out the way they planned, and it's quite interesting. I think for some people the pacing of this story is going to be a little on the slow side. I actually like it. I think it's unfolding at a nice pace, but I can see the other side of the fence on this. But once again, it's the artwork. The artwork is just stunning, and it's well worth the price of admission just to stare at the artwork. But the story is actually pretty good, and I'm enjoying where they're taking the story. So I still think it's worth checking out. Next up, we have Wonder Girl #4, written by Joelle Jones, with artwork by Joelle Jones and Andre Mello. So we're still in the first story arc, and it's leading to, we're learning about Flora and where she's coming from, and how we finally find out how that she is actually a god, sort of. So the question is, we assume at this point she's not going to become a god, but I think the question of why does she turn becoming a god down, I think is really where the interesting part of the story is, and I really enjoy it. And we finally get to see, she finally gets to meet the Pegasus character, and her first round of trying to capture him does not go well. Big surprise, mostly because we already know that he's kind of a jerk. So he's playing the part well, as we see in their first meeting. So that's actually nice. The artwork continues to be stunning, and I love Joelle Jones's artwork. Her artwork's absolutely fabulous. But Mello's artwork is actually really nice, and they really, in a lot of ways, complement each other. I mean, you could tell the different styles, but it's not a drastic change, which is smart. That's probably why Jones picked them to do the artwork. But it's a gorgeous book, and it really complements her story. And I like how she's unfolding this mythology and really creating the groundwork for Flora as a character, which is, once we get past this first story arc, then she'll be able to really tell stories. But she's taking the time to build this character, and it's working out so well. So you have a great story with gorgeous artwork. This continues to be, like, for me, a must-buy book. Next up, we have Crossover #9, written by Donny Cates, with artwork by Jeff Shaw. So we saw in the last issue, the Powers characters come to the storyline. So now we're seeing more of the detective of them trying to figure out what is going on. Why did the general trying to kill all the heroes or the comic book characters? Why are comic book writers being killed? There's all this going on. I cannot stress enough that I don't want to say anything about this story, but I will say the ending to this is really interesting, because I don't know where they're going to go with this, because they have crossed over with independent characters, but they may actually go outside of that playground. I don't know. We shall see. We'll have to see in the next issue, see where they take it. But this issue really works. It's a lot of fun, because we have the Powers interrogation, which is always a classic in the Powers book. So we get to see it here, and boy, Cates really has a field day with the dialogue in that's just perfect. It's a lot of fun and everything. And this book still continues to impress me art-wise by Jeff Shaw. He really, first of all, he draws the character in his style, which is a very smart move. Now, they do have a look, like the Powers characters look like Oeming's artwork, but he's not trying to copy it, which is smart. And once again, we go back to the coloring on the book, where they do the dots, the old printing look for them, and it really just gives this book a great look. And like I said, Shaw's really knocking it out of the park. Look, visually, Cates is really, this story just keeps getting better. Every issue, you're like, holy crap, what did you just do? And this issue has a lot of holy crap, what did you just do? So I continue to recommend this. I know the first trade's out. You should be checking out this book. I really, really enjoy it. And finally, last but certainly not least, is Wonder Woman Black and Gold #5. So this issue contains 5 stories. So the first one is by Peter J. Tomasi writing, with Christian Alamy doing the artwork. Then we have Sanya Anwar writing and drawing. Then we have the next story by Kurt Bissett, with artwork by Benjamin Dewey. Then we have Josie Campbell writing with Carlos de Andia doing the artwork. And then the final story is written and drawn by Trung Le Nguyen. So, as I've said before with this book, first of all, and this issue continues, that each story is so well done, so inspiring, so much Wonder Woman that this has really been spectacular. And I really like how each creative team is really bringing their style with writing and the artwork and just making it their own. And it adds so much to her great mythology that this book just continues to just really impress me. The first story by Tomasi and Almi is really, it's just a simple rescue story, but I think they have a lot of fun with it. And she basically has to go to somewhat hell to rescue a friend, and it's just a simple story, but once again, this is what I love about short stories. It's just short and sweet, gets to the point, tells the story well, and that's why it works. And Tomasi does that really well. Alami's artwork is just gorgeous here. It really is wonderful. The next one by Anwar and by Anwar is really it's basically a haunted sea witch story sort of thing, and I'll tell you, when you get to the end, it will really touch you. It's a really touching story. It's really beautiful. The artwork is wonderful. It's really just a very beautiful story. I really, like I said, I got it's definitely, it's emotional, and it really tells that story really well. The next one by Bissek and Dewey is really just a fun kind of superhero story. It's just bad guys. Diana's just trying to get him. It's really a simple story, but it's a fun story. But really it's kind of sad at the end. Bissek dedicates the story to John Paul Leon, who passed away fairly recently, and my guess is he might have been the original artist to do this. So I really have to give it to Dewey that he, if that's the case, he really stepped up and did this story proud. The artwork's really nice, and like I said, it's just a fun story. The next one is kind of interesting. The Josie Campbell and Carlos de Anda. It really has to do with her being made of clay, and it's an interesting story because we know her origin, but this is a nice side story that it kind of fills it in some ways of like her training and stuff, and you've kind of seen this story, but the way that they tell it is really well done here, and I really enjoyed the artwork. This one was really the last one by Trung Le Nguyen it's really a heartfelt story. Not only is it a beautiful story, but I love his artwork. The artwork is just absolutely stunning, and it goes back. It really captures what Wonder Woman really is that not, there is good and evil, but not necessarily black and white like that. And this story really captures that perfectly, that things are not always what they seem, or just right or wrong, good and evil. And this story is really beautiful. Like I said, the artwork is absolutely stunning. It's really gorgeous. Once again, all these stories fire on all four cylinders. There was one more issue. I can't wait. This book has been just spectacular. And the other great thing is you can just pick up this issue. If you miss the other one, it's fine. All these stories stand on their own. These are being must-buy books. This is a true celebration of the character and the spirit of Wonder Woman, and I really enjoy it. And I think you really need to check this and any of the other issues out. They've been spectacular. That's going to do it this week. Thanks again for tuning in. As always, public service announcement: I get all my comics at Pulp Fiction Comics Long Beach. Ryan runs a really great store. Annie and Eduardo are there. There's not only is it a great store, but there's great customers. They have a wonderful Facebook group page where everybody just kind of jumps in. We have a good time there, sharing stuff from the internet, pointing out. There's one customer, Wendy, who points out stuff that is coming up for final order cutoff. She's really great about that. She also has been doing reviews because she covers she reads a lot of Marvel books. So if I've missed them, you definitely check out the Facebook group page. There's a sister store run by Chris and her team in Culver City, Pulp Fiction Culver City. They were originally related, but they're separate stores now. But Chris runs a really great store up there. Both stores offer pull services, great discounts. They offer discounts on comics with the pull service. They offer trades and hardcovers at 30% off. They're both really great stores. If you live in the LA area, at the very least, check them out. And as always, please support your local comic shop, especially now with the shortages of paper and stuff. Is really a big time to support your comic shop. And once again, please get vaccinated. We're getting better, but please get vaccinated. Take care of yourself. Continue to mask up. Be safe out there. And as always, we always end our show with please be kind. Kindness goes a long way. Being kind to one another is just common sense, but being kind to somebody can really make someone's day, and it can really help everyone. So please be kind out there. All right, that's going to do it this week. Thanks for tuning in. Please like, share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. And as always, just take care of yourselves, and we'll see you again next week. This is Steven from Pop Culture Maven signing out. Take care. Bye-bye.